This conference will
The
now
first
be
step in the
recorded.
procurement cycle, which we were discussed during the previous session, was creation of the purchase requisitions. So purchase requisitions can be created manually and via materials requirement planning program. Okay, so those are the two ways how a purchase requisition can be created. We have seen how a purchase requisition can be created manually. Also, we have seen a purchase requisition can be created via material requirement planning program. Okay, so the step number 2 in the procurement cycle is, let me go to the some Word document, Paint document. Okay, so step number 1 in the procurement cycle is creation of the purchase requisitions, which we were able to discuss. Okay, then step number 2 in the procurement cycle is, let me quickly write it down over here. The step number 1. So step number 1 is creation of the purchase requisitions via material requirement planning program and manually. Okay, create purchase requisition manually or via material requirement planning program, MRP program. Also, a purchase requisition can be valid for the material approval process. Means, if I am the production department supervisor, if I create a purchase requisition, it will go through the various levels of approval. So all the levels of approval should review the requisition and approve accordingly. So approval mechanism. Okay, so let me write it down quickly. So the P2P cycle is nothing but a procure to pay cycle. Okay, so procure purchase requisition, I can call it as an internal document. Why I am calling it as an internal document? Because it will be used as a communication purpose for the procurement of the materials between a procurement department and the other departments like production department, human resource management department, sales and distribution, etc. So that is the reason I will be calling this document as a external document, internal document. So purchase requisition will be a internal document. Internal document. Okay, so then what is the step number 2 in the procurement cycle? The step number 2 in the procurement cycle is the vendor selection process. Okay, what is vendor selection process? Vendor selection process is nothing but somebody requested procurement of the materials and that request came to the procurement department. Then what procurement department has to do? Procurement department has to search for one of the possible vendor to further proceed on the procurement activities of that particular material. Okay, so what activities that a procurement department has to do if they want to buy a material or the vendor selection process? They need to find it out 3 different vendors. Let us say vendor 1 and vendor number 2 and vendor number 3 who is available in the market. These 3 vendors will send us the quotations. So against, let us say procurement department is trying to buy a bearing. So one of the vendor they identified for the procurement of the bearing or the requesting the quotations from the vendor is the HMT bearings is one of the vendor. Then vendor number 2 is the premier bearings. And vendor number 3 is the Tecumseh. So these are the 3 vendors a procurement department is trying to buy the bearing. So what is the first and foremost activity the procurement department has to do? procurement department has to raise one of the document known as a request for quotation. So procurement department will request the quotations from the different vendors. So it will create one of the valid document known as the request for quotation 1 upon vendor number 1 for the material that they are trying to buy, and request for quotation number 2 upon vendor number 2, and request for quotation number 3 upon vendor number 3. So against these requests for quotations, the vendors are trying to send the quotes, whatever they want to quote against the materials requested by the procurement department. So within the quotes, what they will give, what are the details they are going to give against these quotes? They are going to provide the prices. Let us say HMT bearings, they want to sell, or they want to sell a bearing to the company or the procurement department at the rate of, let us say, 100 rupees per piece. 100 rupees per piece. Then premier bearings, they want to send or sell the bearing at the rate of 115 rupees per piece. And Tecumseh, they want to sell at the rate of 125 rupees per piece. Not only the prices, they also give the warranty and the delivery terms and conditions at which they want to sell the material. Let us say HMT bearings said they will sell the material with a warranty of 5 years. Means if HMT bearing provide the material today, if within the 5 years if the material got damaged, then they will replace it for free of cost. Premier bearings also, they will replace it, they will give a warranty of 3 years. And Tecumseh, they will say they will give a warranty of 1 year. Also the delivery terms and conditions and the payment terms. HMT company will say, if I deliver the material today, you can make the payment after 90 days. So they are giving a credit of 90 days credit. Premier bearings are saying 60 days credit. And Tecumseh is saying they will give a credit of 30 days. Also, HMT bearings will say, if I order today the material, they will deliver within 7 days or 1 week. And Premier bearings will say, if I ask the company to deliver the material, they will deliver within 15 days. And these people will deliver after 30 days. So if I am trying to do any one of the best possible vendor, I need to consider following parameters into consideration. One of the parameters is quality of the material, and cost, and delivery terms and conditions. So procurement department will consider these things into consideration and try to do the vendor selection process, delivery terms and conditions. Okay. So by considering these parameters, let us say procurement department came to an understanding vendor number 1 can give given the rank number 1. So he is the best vendor. So rank number 1 vendor, and he is the rank number 2 vendor, and he is the rank number 3 vendor. Means if you see HMT bearing is delivering with the less price, and they are also giving a high warranty, also they are giving a 90 days credit. So that is the reason I can give rank number 1 to the vendor number 1, and rank number 2 to the vendor number 2, and rank number 3 to the vendor number 3. That means vendor number 1, that nothing but HMT bearings is one of the best possible vendor for do the procurement, and vendor number 2 is the second best possible vendor. So I can reject the quotation of the vendor number 3. So just reject it over here. Once the quotation of the vendor number 3 got rejected, then procurement department will inform regarding the rejection of the material, rejection of the request for quotation that got raised by the vendor number 3. Okay, also a request for quotation can go for the approval mechanism. Approval mechanism. Every procurement document can go for the approval mechanism within the procurement processes of SAP materials management. Okay, so any doubts on the vendor selection process?
No, sir.
Hello?
No, sir. No.
Okay, so if there is no doubts, we can go for the further step. So the step number 3 in the procurement cycle is the, I have selected one of the best vendor. Against the selected vendor, I need to create various procurement documents, right? What are those procurement documents? Those procurement documents are nothing but step number 3 is a create various procurement documents upon selected vendor. When I say various procurement documents, okay, so anyone is there in the from the parallel batch, or the anyone is there from the parallel batch, not from the first batch? I'm asking, is anyone joined from the second batch? Hello? All are from first batch? Anyone from the second batch or the parallel batch, which
Sir,
has gone till last Saturday?
I'm in first batch, sir.
Okay, what about others? Anyone from the second batch? No one? Okay, so what are the various documents that a procurement department is going to buy, create upon the selected vendor? So there are three types of various documents. One is outline document, outline agreement. So within the outline agreement, there is one more thing known as a contract. So I have contract. Within the contract, there is again two types of variants. That is quantity contract and the value contract. Within the outline agreement, there is one more type of variant, that is scheduling agreement. Okay, within the scheduling agreement, you have the scheduling agreement. Scheduling agreement. Within the scheduling agreement, we have scheduling agreement with release and without release. With release is one type and without release is the second type. Okay, apart from the scheduling agreement, we have one more thing known as a create purchase order. Okay, so these are the various types of procurement documents which we are going to create as a part of step number 3. Okay, so every document like request for quotation, quantity contract, value contract, scheduling agreement with release and without release, and purchase order, these documents will go through the approval mechanism. Okay, any procurement document that I am going to create will go through the approval mechanism in a procurement process. Okay, so then what is contract? I think if there is if the people are all are involved from the batch number 1, we have discussed already these things. I will just ask one question: what is contract? Can anyone specify what is the meaning of the contract?
A long-term
What is
agreement. A long-term agreement between purchase organization to vendors.
Okay, so it is a long-term agreement between the purchasing organization and a department and the external organization known as a supplier or the vendor. So it is a long-term agreement between a purchasing department, I can say purchasing department or the purchasing organization and the external party known as vendor or supplier. Okay, so every contract will have a validity period, as we discussed in the previous session. Every contract will have the validity period. Means it starts with some particular day. Let us say in India, every contract will have the validity start date as 01/04/2022, and it is validity end date is 31/03/2023. So it will have 1 year validity. Some contracts will have only 3 months validity, some will have 6 months, some will have 9 months, and some will have 1 year validity. Okay, so then what is the quantity contract? So quantity contract is nothing but it is the contract is based upon the quantity, right? It will have a validity period. Within the validity period, I am asking the vendor to supply. Let us say I am trying to raise a contract for the bearings. So I will ask the vendor to supply a bearings of 1 lakh quantity between the period of 01/04 to 31/03. So it is a quantity based contract. Then what is value based contract? Value based contract is the agreement between the supplier and the purchasing department is in terms of value. Means I will ask the vendor to supply a material to the worth of, let us say, some 50 lakhs or 10 lakhs. So it is nothing but the contract is in based upon the terms of value, nothing but a value contract. Okay, so then what is a scheduling agreement? Scheduling agreement is also having a validity period. It will have the validity start date and it will also have the validity end date. So 31/03/2023, it will also have the validity start date and end date. And let us say the scheduling agreement also I am trying to create for the quantity based contract. Let us say I created a scheduling agreement for a quantity based contract. It will have the agreement to supply the material from 01/04 to 31/03. Let us say 1 lakh pieces of the bearings. The difference between the scheduling agreement and the contract is, in case of the contract, I am trying to create the contract. That's it. I will give the printout of the contract to the vendor, but I will not tell the vendor to supply how much quantity against the contract which I have created in advance. I will simply give the contract and I will say, whenever I will require the material, I will contact you. That's it. So, but when I will contract, I will contact only when there is a physical requirement that came from the production department or any other department for the materials. Let us say for somebody from the production department today, they requested a bearing of 1000 numbers. Then what I will do as a procurement supervisor, I will see the contract that is being created for the vendor to the bearings, and again I am going to convert that particular contract into a one-time purchasing document known as a purchase order, and that particular purchase order convert contract into a purchase order. So that particular purchase order I am going to again give it to the vendor, and vendor will deliver the materials against the purchase order which I have given to him. Let us say there is one procurement department, he requested 1000 bearings today. Then I will contact 10,000 bearing today. I will ask the supplier and I will convert this particular contract which I have created earlier into a purchase order for the 10,000 pieces, and I will give this particular purchase order copy to the vendor, so he will deliver the material to me. But in case of the scheduling agreement, it is not like that. I am not going to convert any scheduling agreement into a purchase order. Instead, while I am creating the purchase order itself, I will specify the delivery dates accordingly in advance. Let us say I created a purchase scheduling agreement on 0104. Immediately I will also give the delivery schedules like 51, 1504, 2022. I will ask the vendor to supply at 20,000 pieces against the scheduling agreement which I have created for the 1 lakh, and 31052022 30,000 pieces, and 30082022, so 30,000, and 31032023 remaining 20,000. I will ask the vendor to deliver the materials. These delivery schedules I am going to give him in advance along with the scheduling agreement, so that he will plan his resources and the production activities properly, and he will be able to deliver the material to the company premises. Again, is the scheduling agreement which I have given to him. Okay, then what is a purchase order? So purchase order is one of the one-time procurement document. Means today I need 10,000 numbers. Then what I will do? I will create one-time procurement document known as a purchase order, and I will give it to the vendor. So vendor will deliver the materials to me again as the one-time procurement document, and the work is now done. So it is a one-time procurement document. So it will not have any validity period like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months, etc. Instead, the material will be delivered in one go, and the order will be closed after he delivered the material. Whatever may be the requested quantity, I have requested. Again is the purchase order. Okay, so then what else we have? What is the step number 3? In the step number 3, whatever may be the documents that I have created, like quantity contract, value contract, scheduling agreement, and the purchase order, these documents will go through the approval mechanism, again as we discussed in case of the purchase requisition or the request for quotation. Okay, so then I can call a request for quotation, contract, value contract, quantity contract, scheduling agreement, and the purchase orders as a external documents. Why I am calling these documents as an external document? Can anyone suggest? So these documents are called as external documents. Whatever may be the request for quotation, quantity contract, value contract, and the scheduling agreement which I have created. So these are external document. Okay, why I am calling these documents as the external document? Can anyone suggest?
This document goes to the outside of the organization.
Yes, yes. So these are the documents which will be used for the communication purpose for the procurement activities between a procurement department and the external party altogether, known as a supplier. So that is the reason I am calling these documents as a external documents. Okay, so any doubts on this till here? Okay, so if there is no doubt, then we can go for the step number 4. What is the step number 4 in the procurement cycle? Can anyone tell? I think we have covered this thing as well during the previous session. So step number 4 is the, can anyone tell what is the step number 4?
Goods receipt, sir.
Yeah. Yes. So we have covered entire cycle in our previous session, but I am trying to give some overview so that if anyone from the new batch joins, so they will be able to cover it up. So it is the goods receipt process, right? So what is goods receipt process? Goods receipt process is nothing but you have created one purchase order, let us say. Against that particular purchase order, the material was delivered by the vendor into your company premises. Then you need to register that particular receipt of the material into your company as a goods receipt within the SAP system. It is like your bank account. You want to deposit some money into your bank account, you will go to the cash deposit machine and you will deposit into the ATM, right? In the same way, when you deposit the money into your ATM, what will happen to your bank balance? The bank balance will go increase, right? Let us say today morning you have 10,000 rupees in your bank and you have deposited 10,000 rupees. Then what is the total balance in your bank? It will be 20,000 rupees. In the same way, I have done the goods receipt into the company for a particular material. When do the goods receipt, the quantity update will be happening within the inventory management module. Again, there will be a finance postings at the finance module. So these are the two updates that are happening in the goods receipt process. So as we discussed, SAP is a integrated package. That means sometimes whatever may be the transactions I'm doing, it has implications on the different modules like goods receipt. If I process a goods receipt, it will have implications at the finance module as well as it will have implications at the inventory management module. It will have implications in the inventory management module in terms of quantity update. It will have the finance postings in terms of GL account postings. Okay, so we will see what is quantity update and what is GL account postings in our coming sessions. Okay, before step number 4 and in between step number 3, there is one more thing known as purchase order monitoring. I just need to specify it over here. So there is one more step between the step number 4 and the step number 3. That is nothing but a purchase order monitoring. Okay, so what is purchase order monitoring? Monitoring of the procurement documents or the purchase order monitoring. Monitoring of procurement documents. Okay, so monitoring is nothing but you created one purchase order or the contract or the scheduling agreement and gave it to the vendor. So you should make follow-ups again at the vendor for the receipt of the materials again in the documents which you have created. Like you, there will be so many customers to that particular vendor. So if your quantity is very low, the ordered quantity is very low. Let us say you ordered only 1000 pieces for a particular material. At the same time, there is one more customer who ordered 1 lakh pieces. So he will give preference to the person who requested 1 lakh pieces. Maybe he may ignore the quantity which he have requested, right? So that is the reason you need to ensure as a procurement department person to get the materials at any cost from the vendor, even though your quantity is 50 pieces or 10 pieces. So how you are going to do that? You need to make continuous follow-ups manually. You need to call the person or email the person. So like that, whatever may be the activity you need to do it, you need to do and get the material into your company. So you can do the follow-ups manually. Manually do follow-ups. Or there is one thing known as the Dunning procedure in SAP materials management. So you can go for the Dunning process. There is one thing known as Dunning. So you need to do the settings for the Dunning procedure, and based upon the Dunning procedure, your system can send the reminders to the vendor regarding the delivery of the materials. Let us say first reminder you are going to send after creation of the purchase order 10 days. Means today you created a purchase order. Once the 10 days is over, you are going to send the reminder automatically by the system regarding the reminder to the vendor for the delivery of the materials which against your purchase order. Again, reminder number 2 after 20 days. Reminder number 3 after 30 days. Reminder number 4 after the 40 days of the creation of the purchase order. So it is like your LIC policy. You have taken the LIC policy and the premium date is, let us say, 31/05/2022. So a first reminder will be received on 1st of May into your mobile ID or the mobile number as a message. Second reminder on 10th of May. Third reminder on 20th of the May or 25th of the May. Fourth reminder is on 31st of May. So they will send you a message like that, right? So they will remind you. The same way, I am also reminding the vendor regarding the order which I have placed against him to deliver the materials, which is nothing but a monitoring of the procurement documents. Then what is step number 5 after goods receipt? The step number 5 after the goods receipt is the invoice verification process. Step number 5 is invoice verification process. Means you created a goods receipt. That means you have received some quantity of materials to your company. Invoice receipt process. That means you are liable to make a payment for the quantity which you have done as a goods receipt. Let us say you have received 1000 materials of bearing. Each bearing is 10 rupees, right? So what is the total invoice value? Total invoice value will be 10,000. And if there is any taxes, let us say taxes are there. So the taxes are, let us say, some 1500 rupees. Okay, then what is the total invoice amount you need to pay to the vendor? The total invoice amount which you need to pay to the vendor is 10,000 plus 1500. It will be 11,500 rupees. You are going to pay to the vendor as a amount for the materials what he delivered. So if you want to make the payment to the vendor, you need to do one activity in the SAP materials management known as invoice verification process. Okay, so again is the invoice verification process. there is a step number 7 is there. You did the invoice verification for the 11,500 rupees. As per your agreement between the vendor, if he may deliver the material today and the invoice is created today, he is liable to make the payment received as on after 30 days. Let us say as on today I created, and as on 18/05/2022 there is one automatic payment program getting executed by the finance department. So that is step number 6. Step number 6 is a payment run. So there is one program known as a payment program. That program, when he is automatically getting executed on 18th May 2022, it will try to consider the invoice which you have posted as on today, and it will try to make the payment to the vendor. What it will do? It will debit the company's bank account. Debit company bank account to the value of 11,500 rupees and credit the vendor bank account. Credit vendor bank account to the value of 11,500 rupees. So that the payment will be received by the vendor against the materials what he have delivered and whatever the invoice he raised. Okay, so these are the 7 steps that are involved in the procurement cycle of any procurement activity of the company. So here the step number 1, creation of the purchase requisitions, will be, this activity will be done by so many departments in an organization. Any department that requires material from the procurement department, they can go ahead and create the purchase requisition. That means all departments in an organization can go for and create a purchase requisition. Then the vendor selection process, creation of the various procurement documents, and we have contract, scheduling agreement, value agreement, and the quantity agreement, and the dunning procedure. So these 3 activities will be performed by the, let me write it down over here. So these 3 activities will be performed by the procurement department or the purchasing department. Okay, so this is the procurement department activities, or the procurement department will do these activities. Then the goods receipt process will be executed by the stores or the inventory management department, IM department. Then invoice verification and payment run will be executed by the finance department. So even though I am saying it is a procurement cycle, but there are various departments that are executed various transactions within the procurement cycle. Okay, so based upon this, there are various types of procurement processes. The main backend activities for a particular procurement process is the procurement cycle only. Okay, but based upon this procurement cycle, we are going to execute various types of procurement processes in a purchasing department or the materials management department. What and all those big procurement processes we are going to discuss soon when we are executing the scenarios. Okay, so demo on 18/04/2022. Okay, based upon this procurement cycle, there are various types of procurement scenarios that I am going to execute. Every scenario will have these many steps included in it, but for each and every scenario, there will be a little bit of minor changes or the differences. So are you clear about procurement cycle, or do you have any doubts? Hello?
Sir.
Any doubts still here, or
No,
will
clear,
you
sir.
able to clear, right?
Clear, clear.
Okay. So anyone joined from the second batch, or all are from first batch only? I asked them to give this particular link, but not sure. There is a link change, right? So that is the reason I just want to have the confirmation. If anybody from the second batch was able to join the link. Okay, so all are from first batch only, it means?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then good. So, based upon this procurement cycle, there are various types of procurement processes that are available in the SAP materials management. I will quickly write it down what and all those business processes. Okay, so we have one thing known as a step number 1 or the process number 1, that is procurement of the materials for the stock purpose. So the process number 1 based upon the P2P cycle is procurement of the materials for the stock purpose. For stock purpose. Within this you have, when I say procurement of the materials for the stock purpose, the meaning is I am buying the materials in advance and storing them in the warehouse or the storage department before utilizing them in the real production department activities. Okay. So what are the various types of procurement of the materials for the stock purpose? Again, we have two. One is domestic procurement process, and the second one is the import procurement process. So what is domestic procurement process? Domestic procurement process is nothing but there is a purchasing department, right? So or the company. Within the company there will be a purchasing department anyhow. Let us say there is one company. Within the company there is a purchasing organization or the purchasing department. So this particular purchasing department buying the material from one of the supplier or the vendor. Let us say he is the supplier. So this company is located in India, let us say, and this supplier is also located in India, and you are trying to buy the material from the supplier who is located in India for the manufacturing location of the company located in India. So this type of procurement process I will call it as a domestic procurement process. It is domestic procurement process. But the other scenario where you have a company which is located in India, but the supplier from which you are trying to buy the material is located in US. So in such cases, I can call this particular procurement scenario is a import procurement scenario. What are the differences between the domestic and the import? The process itself will be changing over here. Also, the implications of the taxes are quite changing over here. Means in case of the import procurement, you have very less number of implications on the tax, but when it goes to the import procurement processes, there will be various types of taxes that are coming into picture. So like there is one bike, if you buy it within India, it will cost only some 1 lakh rupees. But the same bike, if you try to buy it from US, it will be almost doubled or tripled, right? 3 lakhs it may be. Why? Because there are 100 to 150% various taxes that are included if you are importing a car or the vehicle from one country to another country. So the process steps are completely varies in case of the import procurement scenario compared to the domestic procurement scenario. We will see what are those steps, how are we going to differentiate the domestic procurement again as the import procurement process. Then what is the scenario number 2? Scenario number 2 is the subcontracting procurement process. Subcontract procurement process. So what is subcontracting procurement process? Subcontracting procurement process is nothing but, let us say I will take an example of the Hero Honda company. So Hero Honda company, they want to manufacture engine assemblies. To manufacture the engine assembly, there will be various individual components required. All those components they have it, but they don't have the sufficient manpower or the skilled labor. Also, they don't have the proper machinery to assemble the engine assembly by using the various individual materials. So in such cases, what Hero Honda company will do? Hero Honda company will come to an agreement with one of the nearest other company known as TVS Motors, and within that agreement they will say, we will give you the individual components to you for the manufacturing of the engine assembly. You take all those individual elements to your company premises and use your skilled labor and the machinery which you have along with you and assemble them into a final product and deliver back to us. If you deliver one engine back to us by assembling into proper condition, we will pay a subcontracting service charges of 10,000 rupees per engine. If you assemble 100 numbers, I'm going to pay 100 multiplied by 10,000 as a subcontracting service charges, which will be 10 lakh rupees subcontracting charges I'm going to pay. So this is one of the agreement. So how you are going to differentiate the subcontracting process against the procurement of the domestic procurement or the import procurement? We will see how a system is going to identify the relevant procurement process. We will see in our coming sessions. Okay, so we can stop this session till here today. Tomorrow we can continue. Tomorrow we are going to discuss about the other procurement scenario known as consignment procurement process. I will briefly give what is the difference between each and every process. Once the processes brief introduction is done, we are going to do the organizational structure definition and the configurations. From then we will be simply moving into the SAP materials management, screens and the functionalities. Okay, so any doubts on today's class?
No, sir.
Okay, so if there is no doubts, we can continue from Monday. So Monday from tomorrow you can come offline. Okay, so tomorrow you can come offline. Okay, then thanks for joining the call. Bye.
Sir, I am the first batch. Shall we come to offline, sir, from tomorrow onwards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Today itself you should have come, but I came, but nobody is here. So they didn't give you the information.
Yes, sir. We did not receive any information, sir.
Okay then.
So
Okay
same
then. Bye
time,
bye.
same timing 6:30.
Yes, same timings.
After this, we can go ahead for practice also in the meantime.
Yeah, practice. So tomorrow at least some 15-20 minutes I will give some brief introduction on the 2 or 3 procurement processes. Then we will go for the organizational structure configuration. Then definition first, then configuration.
Okay.
Okay then.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.